Welcome. This is Danger Aware Animation Department, and thank you for joining me. And today what we're going to be working on is creating a new digital DNA character. So with my last videos, I cleaned up our little red ant and created it to be any possible ant to so many. Well, let me just show you. So we start with 1 million as the first order of magnitude, and a billion is the second order of magnitude, and so on till we get to octillion, which is 8 orders of magnitude. And that's where we had our monochrome character limit. That's how many we can create without changing colors. But when we start adding color changes, we can take that to an Undecillion, which is 11 orders of magnitude beyond a million. And so our actual number is 485 Undecillion. So quite a few characters possible once we create the digital DNA character. And the way we get that number is we have 18 digital DNA, digital chromosomes. Each of these chromosomes will affect a different feature of the character. None of it is rigged up now. This process will be beginning to end, rigging the character, rigging the digital DNA, each of the individual chromosomes, and then showing you how we can create undecillions of characters from that. Now the reality is we're only going to get 8 octillion different looking characters, but with color changes we can take it to undecillion. So look at my last videos if you're curious to what I'm talking about, or just stay tuned and watch what I've got here. So here we've got our base character. That's why I've got the titles all here. I've already got all the bones applied and thought out, so that was part of the process that I built the character before. Just like the last character, I wanted to improve on everything, so I've tried to do that, and now I'm ready to start actually rigging the character back up. So I've removed all bone rigging just so that there's nothing there. I've removed all the actions. There are no styles except for the styles for my ID numbers. So down here we have ID numbers. Each of these is going to be associated with a chromosome bone here. And so this will be the first chromosome, this will be the second, third, fourth, and so on to 18 sets. So if I didn't use alphanumeric and I used just digits, then this would be 1/3 larger and be coming all the way over here, because it would be 141 as the maximum for each value here. So using alphanumeric, it cut down the numbers that we need for displaying an ID for the character. When you are able to create 485 undecillion characters from one puppet, well, you need to know, if you want to keep a character, how do we recreate that exact character? So that's where the IDs for the chromosomes come in. Now I know I'm adding a whole lot of activity to a character, and that will reduce performance on your computer if you're trying to animate a bunch of them. I've got all the bones placed, and I've named all the bones. So every bone is identified, so we don't have any confusion of what is doing what and what it should be doing. And that also helps us when we go to create actions for the digital DNA, or for even these actions over here. So here we've got all the bones named, we got all these bones laid out, and if you've looked at any of my other puppets, you understand that these bones are restricted to minus 32 to 32, giving us a range of 65. And as we stop these at 65, we can put them back to back like this to a star pattern so that they can be manipulated without bumping into each other and causing us to wonder which bone do I have a hold of. So as you can see, these bones cannot come together, but they each give me 65 positions for whatever action I'm going to apply to them. Now in this case, we can turn on the names or look at the names of the bones. So you can see here, this is the right pupil, left and right, and we're talking about the character's right hand side. I know a lot of animators like to leave their characters not handed so they can reverse them or whatever, but I try to design my puppets to be reversible automatically, so it's not needed to have them flip left or right to get an effect. Now these bones here are for the wings, and the way I've done that, I don't know if they're still attached or not. Yeah, they are. So these are the only bones that are full functioning at the moment, and these are for the wings. And as you can see, they're moving apart at a different rate. And the way I did that was, you go into the bone constraint paints, and we can apply angle constraints, but we don't want to do that on the wings. We want them to be as functional as we want. But we can control the angle of the wings and how that is controlled by another bone. So this bone over here is for the left wing control, or right. This is the left wing. So here's the left wing's control for the character, but we want to control this wing, and so this wing, which its name is the left back wing, is controlled, and you can see control bones, by the left wing's bone or control lever. And we're having 100% reaction. So however I move this back wing will move 100% for angle. So when I give this 3 degrees, the wing is going to go up 3 degrees. And that's simply all there is to it. And we can add a frame delay. So we could have this bone move first, and then 3 frames later, this bone actually moves. And that's a great effect when you want, accordion effects on things. Like if you have a worm, and you want the worm to look like it's moving accordion-like, you wouldn't have to go and manipulate each individual part. You could apply a delay to each different part. So say this was moving a worm sideways, we could say, all right, well, when this bone moves, we're going to move this bone 1 frame for the first section, but then 2 frames for the second section, 3 frames for the third, and so on, as a delay. And so the first one would then move, then 1 frame later the next part would move, and so on, and it would give the character an accordion effect. So that's what the purpose of the control bones are. We can do angles, we can do positions, and we can even change the scales of other bones based on the movement of this bone or the scaling of this bone or whatever. All right, so that's what I've done. And then on the other wing, there's 2 wings on each side of the body. This one moves 150% for every degree here. So I move 1 degree here, this wing is going to move 1.5 degrees. And it's the same for the other side. So that's the only rigging that's done so far already. So that allows this bone to move the wings together, but they're separating so that we get a separation of the wings until they come back. They join together here, they overlap, and then they cross over into the rest of it. So that's what I did with the wings here on each side for those bones. Now, those are called controlled bones. Moho builds that in because it's part of the constraints. And then the next beauty of that is you can go to bone and you can hide controlled bones. And so now those wing bones are out of the way, and when we flap, they don't get in our, we don't see them, but they will be flapping the wings. So for now we need to bring them back. So we're going to show all bones. So now we've got all these bones we need to apply to this character. So let's just start at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and remove all this text. I only put this here so you guys could understand exactly where I'm at the moment. What these are is digital DNA. I guess I should have put a layer over here for puppet controls. Okay, so these bones on the right hand side of the screen are puppet controls, whereas the left hand is digital DNA. And each of them is a different chromosome or digital chromosome for the entire group. So let me just remove all this text because we don't really need it now that you know exactly what we're doing. Let's get to the rigging of the buttons. So we need to be on each part as we assign it, depending on if we're trying to assign the whole layer or if we're assigning bones to points. So let's start with the antennas because they're at the top here. So we're going to go down to and look for the head, and inside of the head we've got the left antenna and the right antenna. So we start with the left antenna, and you can see that it's there's 1, 2, 3, 4 bones to function the actions for the antenna. That tells us we can't just choose the layer and assign it to a single bone. And also, just so you're aware, I've reduced the strength on all my bones. I understand that you can use strength to manipulate static images, but we're working with a designed character where the parts are all separated into layers as much as is practical, so that we can easily assign bones and manipulate the puppet. The end result is we want to be able to do animation on this character by simply going from the timeline to the puppet, from the timeline to the puppet to the timeline to the puppet. We don't want to have to come over to the layers and have to adjust things while we're doing our animation. We don't want to have to come over and change the position of the eyes by coming over and grabbing the eyes here and then picking up their layer and then moving their layer. The only time you should actually use a layer during animation is during what I call blocking. So if we have a background scene, we need to block the scene. We need to say, okay, the character starts here. You start with their layer at that position. Then you go at 12 seconds or 120 frames in, we need the character here. So then you move the frame to that position. That's the only frame movement you should be doing for animating. Once you've done that, you've got the blocking of where the character is coming from and where the character is going. Then you come in and you manipulate all of the character to fill in the right action for that blocking. And if you need like this character to say jump and flap the wings and fly away, you use the move character tool within that blocking. So you can actually just in animation frame, we're in animation layer 1, you pick up the manipulation tool. We're going back and forth changing our character because we've already done our frame blocking, and now we go, oh, well, I need the character to jump in the air. Well, we don't make the frame jump, we make the character jump by moving this. And as you can see, the entire character is going to move with this bone. That's the point. It's called the move character bone, so that we can manipulate within the frame. And when you're using onion skins, if you haven't moved the frame, that's where onion skins come through and work their best. Okay, so let's undo what I've done. I don't want to move those bones. I want to get them back to where they were to begin with. There we go. So, in the construction layer, now we can assign either a bone to a whole layer, bind the whole layer to the bone, or we can assign bones to points. So we're going to do the bones to points. And as you can see, Moho already gives a basic color to your bones when you get started. So let's go up here to the antenna, and we can see all the points for each of these bones. And we're going to hit B on our keyboard to grab this bone right here. And then we're going to hit I, and that allows us to grab points. And so I'm going to grab these 4 bottom points for the antenna, and I'm going to bind them to that bone. Then I'm going to grab the next B on the keyboard and grab the next bone, then hit I. And now I'm just going to grab the 2 points that are at the tip of that bone and bind them. So you can see I've already planned what the bones and the points are going to be doing. I just didn't bind them to the card yet. So now this is where I get a little tricky, because I've got 2 separate objects here drawn in the same layer. Generally I like to separate parts out, but this is very simple, so I didn't, because it's only the one part. But anyway, now we need B for bone. Grab this top bone here, which was yellow. Hit I for, to choose the points. And I want to choose all these points, but I don't want to choose any of the points for this. But that means I've got to zoom in and make sure exactly which ones I'm grabbing. So I hold Shift, and I know I want this point, and I want this point, but I do not want that point. And so now we want to bind those. So you can see they're now yellow to match the bone. Then we're going to go B on the keyboard, grab this, and then I. And now in this case, I want everything else here. So I can grab the edge of the object, and that grabs most of it, but if you'll notice, it doesn't grab the internal points. So I'm going to hold Shift and grab those internal points. So we're going to hold Shift and then click and drag across and get the rest of those points. And now we're going to bind all of those to that other bone, and now they take on that color. So we can now see that the bones are colored to the points that are assigned to them. And we can test it here. We don't have to go back to the bone layer here to test whether what we're working on will function as we expect. We can test it. So here we go. Grab this bone and see, yes, the antenna is rotating on that rotational point where I wanted it to. And as you can see, the rest of the antenna follows the other bones as they bend. Now, why are these 2 giving us a round while these 2 are giving us a sharp cutoff? And that is because the points don't have a curve on them. So if we go back to the construction layer and look at the points on the antenna. So we're going to grab these 2 points first, or just grab one of them actually, and hit C. You can see that we've got these Bezier levers that allows us to control the curve, and they're quite large. But on these 2, there are no Beziers, they're just sharp. So if we wanted these to be curvy as they bend, we add curve to these points. And now when we go and test our animation, we can see that the antenna now curves instead of break bending. And I think that looks better as a curve than it does as a break. So we're going to leave it like that. And then this one rotates on that joint, And as you can see, it's not quite perfect, but it doesn't need to be. Ants are insects generally, are segmented creatures, and so that is what you want. You want a segmented portion. But this part can be flexible. So there we go. So now we need to do the same thing to the other antenna. So let's jump over and grab these points first, and then hit C, and then we can just drag and add curve to it. So it's 14.29. Let's see what we did on the other one, because we want to stay consistent. So we're just going to grab the point here, and we can see it's 330.52. So go back to the other one, 0.3352 is what we want here. So now they're identical. They both have the same exact curve on them. So now we go back in, and we're going to go to the bones assignment, 2 points. We're going to grab B for bone, grab the green bone here, hit I. We want the bottom 4 points so that the base moves as well as the tip of the bone. We're going to bind those. B to grab, I to grab the points, and then bind. B for bone, I to bind, and then we need those 3 points, and this point, and this point. So we're going to bind those. Then we're going to grab this bone, hit I, grab all of that, then use Shift and collect all the other missing points, and bind all of those to that bone. So now we can test it. And you notice my targets are staying behind. I'll mention those in a minute. So if you watched my last video, you'll already know what the targets are. So there we go. The antenna is now rigged for this character, and it can be manipulated. And you'll notice the antennas come out the face instead of off the top of the head, and that's because that's how these ants actually are. Their antennae are up in front of their nose area instead of on top of their head. So now the target. If you'll notice, I got targets everywhere here, and they're at the nexus of the bones. And that is so when I was creating the character and fine-tuning everything, that I could make it symmetrical, so that the left arm works exactly the same as the right arm, the left legs are the same as the right legs, the left wings, and so on. And that's just so that I could, as I laid out the first ones, I could duplicate the others exactly the same by flipping the target. So I created the first half of the target while I created the character, so that I get everything proper, and then I flipped it, and then that allows me to put the bones in the right places, as well as create my perfect circles at the joints, so that we don't have joints coming apart and doing weird things. So there we go. Let's move to the next thing, which is the head. So we need to make sure that the head moves with the head bone. And the thing is, you see I've got these extra bones up here. You might think, oh, those are for moving the eyebrows or something. No, it's for moving this point and this point. And what I've learned is, when doing a head turn and when applying the ability to change the skull size, when they both combined together, we were getting a weird twisting of the skull. So it was twisting over and on itself. By applying these bones to these points, I can easily prevent that. So that's what the purpose of those are. But we want to bind the rest of this skull to this center bone. So we're going to do B for bone, grab the center bone here, and then and I'm just going to grab the entire skull and bind the entire skull to the end. So we're going to bind those points. So now everything is bound to the skull. But then I'm going to come in and bind this bone with I to just this one point. And that overrides the binding I just did. Same over here. I'm going to grab this bone and I and bind it to that. And now those bones are all bound. And the skull can be tested. It should move now. The eyes won't, the face won't, but the skull and the antennas will, because the antenna are bound to that skull bone in the center. And those 2 points move with those other bones because they're bound to those temple bones, we'll call them. So I don't know, that's what I called it. I think I called it skull's bone or something, but I like temple better. So let's go to the construction layer, the bone frame layer, and I want to go to this bone that says right forehead, and we're going to change it to right temple. And then the other one would be the left temple. I find the better the name, the easier it is to understand exactly what's going on. Alright, so now those bones will only affect the size of the temple when we get to the digital DNA. So now we need to bind the eyes to the skull bone. So we've got, the eyes are each complex objects. They've got masking happening on them. And so the way a mask works is you create a group. Whatever's at the bottom, when you create the mask out of the group, the bottom item becomes your opening. Then everything else is hiding behind that opening. If you bring it towards the opening, you can see it. If you put it behind the opening, you cannot see it. So the right eye creates the group. The sclera is the actual opening, and the other parts are inside, although with the eyelashes, I've excluded them. So if we go in and look at masking, we can see it says hide all. Alright? And then we go into the eyelash, and we look at its masking, and it's going to say, don't mask this layer. Okay? So the eye, even though the eyebrows are part of the eye, they're not inside the mask. Okay? Simple as that. So then we got the upper lid and lower lid. Those are inside the mask. The pupil being below those are behind the eyelids. And of course then the sclera is the opening. So now what we're going to do is bind that eye to the bone by the full layer. Because we've got these complex objects, we want to go with the whole layer moving with the skull at once. And so we go back to the construction layer, and we want to bind layer. Now you can see, because we are in a group, we can't actually apply points. So we're going to bind the layer to this bone right there. Then we're going to bind the other eye to the same bone like that. And then while we're here, we're going to grab the mouth and also bind it to the same bone. So now we can test, and you can see that the entire head, well, not the eyebrows, are moving with that one skull bone. So now we need to do the eyebrows. So we're going to go into eyebrow here. Here's the right eyebrow. And we're going to go zooming in and take a look. And because we've been manipulating things, we want to go back to normal. So we just click this, and the character will return to its rest state. So now you can see that we've got bones on these eyebrows, but they're not quite placed right. So let's go ahead and place them properly. So we're going to go to the bone layer. We're just going to grab the base bone here, and it should just be in the center of that eyebrow. And then we're going to go the same over here. It just needs to be right about the center. So now we want to apply those bones to these eyebrows. So here's the left eyebrow, and you can see we've got 2 bones, so we obviously want to use point binding. So we're going to grab this, hit B for bone, grab the purple one here, hit I, And we're going to bind all of these points just like that. All but the first two here. And we're going to bind those. And then we're going to grab the other bone and bind just those tip two. Now you might be wondering, well, why did you do that? Why only two for that one bone? Well, this is going to be another feature of the character that when we're changing digital DNA, one of the things that's going to change is how big these eyebrows are. So what we can do in the bone layer, so now we can test that out, and you can see we can manipulate the eyebrows, making very expressive facial features for the character's expressions. Now, why just those 2 points for that? And why so short on that? Because I want to be able to change the size of the eyebrows as part of the digital DNA. And to do that, I will be doing it of course, in the animation layer. Then we grab the bone layer, and we grab the bone transforming tool. So with the digital DNA, we can stretch this bone and make a long eyebrow. And as you can see, it will still work just like it's supposed to. It still works based off the base moving it and where it moves. So we can have many different eyebrows for our characters. So that's the purpose of doing the eyebrows the way I did. So now we do the other eyebrow. We're going to grab the right eyebrow. You can't assign points unless you're in the construction layer. So now I can grab those points and bind them. Grab the next bone, the green one, eye, grab these points and bind them. We want to do the neck. So on the neck, that is part of the chest. So you can see here I've got chest and I've got thorax. And why did I do that? Well, we're going to separate those into groups. So with chest being the bottom of the group and the arms being the top of the group. So we're going to grab that and we're going to group those together with a selection, and we're going to call that upper body. I probably should have done this before. Now that won't mess up the coloring inside of the upper body. Well, it does a little. Well, yeah, the left arm should be blue, not cadet blue. So there we go. And then the lower body is going to be a different group. And we only want, actually, not the whole lower body, but just the legs and the thorax. Because we want the legs to rotate around the thorax, we need them to be in a group by themselves. So we take the right rear leg, the left rear leg, the right front leg, the left front leg, and the thorax, and we're going to create a new group, and that's lower body. So these are not just for, oh, let's separate everything. These are because we can apply features to a group that we cannot interchange. Okay, so now that we've changed the way a character is laid out here, we've got target, which we're going to remove. In fact, now that I've explained it, I'm going to save this character as a new character because I don't want to destroy my first original there. So we're going to go to 2, whoops, and save as 2. So this is a practice I use when I'm making major changes to a character. If I made a mistake, I can go back and pull up a prior version. Now, the shoulder bones, I'm going to grab them. And we're going to add constraints to those. And it was -8. So now those can only move so far. And we can bind the shoulder bone of the chest here. And we're going to grab deeper bone and eye, and just this point here gets down to the shoulder bone. Test it. Very good. And here. So let's go down to the wings. So right front wing, layer bound to this bone. Left front wing to this bone. Right back wing to this bone. Left back wing to this bone. So we can test that. It's working great. That's working great. So now we can turn off the wings so we don't see them at all. And we can hide those bones. Let's go to the construction layer and the construction frame. And return bones to normal, and then hide controlled bones. So now those wing bones are out of our way. And these bones are all shy bones, so if we turned off shy bones, we no longer see the DNA bones, so we can just concentrate on the rest of the character. And we can turn off the ID. We don't need to see that right now. So let's concentrate on these hands. So first we got to do the bicep. We bind that by layer. Then we do the forearm. We bind that by layer. The palm, we bind that by layer. The object goes to the palm. The pinky, we're going to do by points. So we scroll in, we grab the pinky bone, which is the green one, hit I, and bind those points. Grab the lower green bone over the tip of the finger, hit I, hit the tip of the finger object, and bind points. Now, let's see. Forefinger, middle finger. So the forefinger is not right. Let's go ahead and correct that. I'm just going to grab the whole front and T, holding shift. I just need to drag it to where it's lined up with the base of that bone right there. And this point should be centered right there. Let's turn the target back on for the moment. And you can see that this finger is way too big. What happened here? Alright, so what I'm going to do is grab the entire finger, hit T, hold Alt, and shrink it all down so we're touching the secondary circle, the circle that's in the center. That's the proper finger alignment. So there, get this lined up with the base of the bone. So now these points should be in the center of this circle, right there, and right there, and the same down here. It should be right in the center of the circle. And then this curve should follow that circle properly. And it doesn't. This is too far out. There. And hit C for curve. Looks like we can adjust that. So now, there's our forefinger. And our middle finger should be longer, and then our pinky is shorter. Pinky. Four. And middle. Now because of the forefinger being adjusted like I did, oh, and I didn't finish, let's see, B for bone, or G to grab. And see, these points, they need to be at the base of the circle. So we've got to bring these over to the base of the circle, and it should be right in the center of the circle there, and right in the center of the circle here. But it should also be here. So let's pick this up and drag it right there. And in this case, I don't cut them straight off because they're not matching up the same way with the other parts. I left a bit of a curve. So that's because of the palm of the hand functioning. So we'll get to that in a bit. So there, I've got them all set. So now I want to grab this forefinger and copy it. And go to the other forefinger and replace it. So we're just going to go in, and you can see it's way too big. Delete and paste, and it pastes in the right place as well, because again, this is a reversed object of the other hand already. So there we go. Now I'm going to save. I'm going to save as version 3. Alright, so we've got our shoulders and we've got our forearm, and we're going to do the pinky, I believe. Let's see, we got the object in, oh, wrong hand. Let's see, we got the palm. And let's make sure that's working. So yeah, the palm's working. Very good. So now we're going to go to the object, and that's down to the palm already. And we go to the pinky, and on the pinky I've got these bones already set up and staggered so that the green ones are the pinky fingers, the coral ones are the middle finger, and the cadet blue is the forefinger. So we're going to grab the base of the pinky here, hit I to grab the object, and then bind those points. Then we're going to grab the B for bone, grab the base or the tip of the pinky finger, hit I, and grab the edge of the tip and bind those points. Then we can test it. So we grab the green bone, and we can see that the finger's moving. We come out here, we can rotate, and we can see that it's a little bit off on the one side of the rotation, just slightly off. And so let's go in and look at the curve of that object, and we can see it should be following this circle, and you can see why it pulls away is right there. So we want to hit T, and we're going to grab this tip point here, just that point, hit C. Now we can see the Béziers. So this is the Bézier here for this curve. So we're just going to bring that right in where it belongs, and then the same on this side. See, the Bézier is barely showing right there. Okay, so we drag this until we're actually following that curve properly. So there we go. Now the finger should work properly. Grab the green, rotate up, and there we're right on it. So the stroke remains a continuous stroke when we're bending the finger. Alright, so now we're going to go to the middle finger, which is the long one, and we're going to grab the coral bone, so B for bone, grab the coral base, hit I, make sure we're on the middle finger, and then hit I. and bind those points. Grab the B for bone. You're gonna have to zoom in to grab the tip coral one. Zoom back out, hit I, and bind those points. Then we test it. And you can see, again, we're off on the curve. So we just need to go in and match the curve of the circle here. You can see it's way off. So hit T, grab this point. We're going to bring it to right to the center of the bone and the center of the line. So let's see. I think it should be right there. Yeah, that's the center because we can't see it in the white. So now we hit C for curve, and we adjust this Bezier until we've got the line going right to the center of that circle. And then the same down here. This one looks closer already. So there. So now we can test that finger. And perfect. The stroke remains a stroke all the way through the curve. And we get our little bending in for a crease on the finger. So now the forefinger, zoom in, grab the base bone, which is the cadet blue, hit I, grab the edge of the object, bind the entire object. Go in, get close, grab the bone, hit I, grab the object, bind the points. And we may as well check this circle while we're here. And that one actually looks proper. So let's go ahead and test it. So there it is. And looks like the stroke is right on. So there we go. All three fingers rotating at their joint and maintaining a nice clean edge stroke. The little finger's a little bit off there on that direction. But just slightly, and nobody's ever going to see it from this far away, so it's no big deal. So now let's do the thumb. Again, we zoom in, B for base, grab the base bone, hit I, grab the base object, bind the points. Hit E for bone, grab the tip bone, hit I, grab the tip object, bind points, and test. And that looks extremely good. So now that I've done all that adjusting, I think I'll just copy this entire hand. Copy layer, and then I'm going to delete the other hand and just replace it, and then edit, paste, layered. So there's the hand, and it's in the right spot, and all the alterations have been made, and now I can just assign the buttons. So we'll go ahead and just do that. Starting with the palm, I'm going to bind the layer to the button, the object in hand to the palm, the pinky, and we can turn the target off. And now we've got the pinky finger. We can test to see if it's working. There, just hiding behind the other ones. So, oh, we got a bone constraint there we shouldn't have. Oh, I know why. So I'm going to grab B for bone and grab all these bones, and we don't want any constraints on any of them. There we go. So now, that finger bends as it should. So now we do the middle finger. We're going to B for bone. We grab the coral base, and we should be in the construction layer. And B for base, B for bone, I mean, and grab the base of the middle finger, hit I, grab the middle finger object, and bind points. And I can see already it's wrong, but we'll fix that in a second. Then we grab the coral tip, B for bone, then I to bind points, and we bind those points. And G to grab. We're going to grab all of these points, hit T, and then bring the base to the base of the coral bone here. So right there. And let's check our targeting. So we are definitely off, as you can see. So we're in the center of the big circle. Hit T, grab this point. We want to bring it to the center of that circle. And C for curve. And we can adjust the curve till it's as close to perfect as we can get. And there we go. So now we grab the B for bone. And oh, it's already done, yeah. So now we can test it. So we move the coral bone, and we've got a good joint. So now we're going to do the forefinger. So we zoom in. Forefinger. And so we zoom in, grab B for bone, grab the cadet blue, hit I, bind the object, and bind. B for bone, grab the bone, I for item, and bind the points. And we're close on the line, but I want to get it exact. So I'm going to grab all these, and hit T, and then we want to just get that red line right there. So now we can check the circle, and it looks like it's following it very closely. Not exact. Looks a little low. I turned it, I think. It's there. Okay, so there. And C for curve. Move it out that way, and we look good. All right, so now we can test it. Should be this one. And there we go. We've got our good rounded joint on the curve. I basically just watched to see if this is following the line, and that's what tells me if it's correct or not. So there, we've got those fingers all done. Let's do the thumb. So we grab B for bone, I, bind. B for bone, I, and bind. So test the thumb. Alright, and that's good for this hand. So, yep, everything's moving. And we didn't get the forearm here. Bind that whole layer to the forearm. Biceps to the biceps. So if you'll notice, my stroke line is centered on the perfect circle. It doesn't have to follow the perfect circle, but it needs to be on that line at the extreme. And that's how all of these work properly. even without being perfect circles. So let's test everything here. So moves up and down, shoulder moves with it. Move his arm up and down, reaching around. Can he reach the top of his head? No, but we can stretch the arms for comedic effect if we need to. But he will be able to bring his head down. So we can do that. And then we can affect his antennas and clean them and all that. So there we go. Our character is coming along. Looks like the neck is not attached. So let's go to the chest and B for bone and eye, and let's just do this point and see how that works. So find that point, and now head moves like that. That works. I like that. But these points, these should be on the shoulder, I think. So B for bone, and eye, and we'll find that point. Then B for bone, and eye, and grab that point, and bind with that. So now, that moves with the shoulder. I like that. That's better. So, and with the shoulders having constraints, we won't be sucking the neck into nothingness. And the neck stretches and it bends. We should probably put a constraint on this bone. So let's do that. Bone layer. Let's go 45. That gives it a 91-degree range. All the way from that to that. Although that's, well, no, that works. Yeah. Yeah, I'll leave it like that for now. We can always change things later, but I think that's making the puppet work quite well like it should. Alright, so now we've got the chest bound, but we don't have the base of the chest bound. It looks like they're just staying where they are. So go back to the chest. And hit B for bone, and we're going to grab this bone and hit I, and we're going to bind these 2 points to that bone. So now as the body, the chest moves, and the arms move, that's perfect. So now we need to do the thorax, or in the lower body. So we go here to the thorax, and I don't think we need anything bound to anything other than this bone. So we're going to do it by layer, and the whole layer. So now, when we manipulate it, the chest moves with the thorax, as it should. There we go. So as you can see now, we've got 1 hip bone not working, 3 hip bones not working. 1 hip bone's working, the other 3 are not. So let's correct that. Well, actually, these 2 probably don't need to bend, but let's go B for bone, P to parent, and make sure it's parented. Oh, we need to be in the bone layer. And then P to parent, and see it's coming down here. It should be going to this, just like that. Then these 2, let's see what happens if we parent them also to this. So now if we rotate the character's thorax, the legs are going to go with it, but the abdomen stays. I think that should be it. That should work like that. Now Can we stretch this bone? Is that going to mess up the shoulder? Doesn't appear to be. Let's go here and try it. Actually, that probably will work. Well, that won't work. That's not going to work. Because when I do the digital DNA, the shoulder allows me to rotate the arm around the body. And see, when I move that shoulder, it's moving the body. So we can't bind the shoulder points to the shoulder bones. We're going to have to bind them to the neck. So let's go back to the chest. And B for bone. Oh, construction layer. There we go. Now I can do B for bone. Grab this bone. And then I. And grab all of these points. And bind. So. Now we need to reduce the angle from 45. It's too much. Let's go 25. So we're going to go to bone constraints. Minus 25 to 25. So that's what doing all this is just testing and seeing what works. So I think that'll work. That's fine. Then this moves like that. Yeah, that'll work. It's not exactly what I like, but it'll function. So and we can stay inside there if we need to, or come out just a bit. Well, it still works. All right, so we've got the torso and the neck and the arms, the way they're going to work. Let's go to the legs. So we're now going to start binding these legs. So we got the thigh, and it needs to be bound by a whole layer to this bone. So this should be fairly easy. The foot's a little different, but we can do the shin. And then on the foot, it's points. So we go B for bone, then I, and these three get bound. Then B for bone, and I, and the rest of the foot. So now we can bend our foot up and down, grab onto things with the tips of the toes there, and we can rotate the foot either direction. So it's functional however it's pointing. So it's easy to make the character look like the legs are going this direction or they're going this direction. So that gives real versatility to the animator to make the character walk, jump, dance, whatever, and tap the toes. So we're going to do the next one. The thigh gets bound by layer. The shin gets bound by layer. The foot gets bound by points. So B to bind. I, B for bone, bind, and B for bone, and I to select, and then bind. So test it. Rotation is good. The knee works good. Don't have any weird knobbiness happening. So we move to the next one. Thigh gets bound by the layer to this bone, shin to this bone, and then the foot bone, I to grab, B to bind, B for bone, I to grab, click to bind, and final leg, thigh, it's down, bone, shin, it's down to this bone, and the foot. B for bone, I, bind, B for bone, I, and bind. So now we can test that foot. Well, there we go. So now we can move the legs around, and I think we're going to want to put some constraints on these hip bones, on all of them, because we don't want things going crazy on the animator when they're trying to do things. We don't want it flipping around and then we can't get control of that. But yeah, we also don't want the character doing weird things. So let's go back to the bone layer. And grab B for bone, and holding shift, select all 4 of these bones, and then constraints, and we'll go -4. Now, they can move somewhat up and down, but not ridiculously so. Maybe a little more than that. Nah, that's fine. That's fine. Because they do have to go around the torso when we start doing the DNA. So, it looks like everything but the abdomen is aligned. So let's go to that. So we're going to open up the abdomen, and each segment has its own bone, so that makes it easy. We just grab the segment and then the bone that it should be working from. And as we get in close, we're going to have to move in to get the right bone. And finally, the 7th one is based on, well, if I can touch it, there we go, that bone. So now, everything is rigged, I believe. Let's double check the entire character. So let's go all the way to the bone layer. And let's save it before anything else happens. So we're still on 3. So now we're just going to hide the targets. We don't need those anymore. And just going to test all these parts. Now these bones are going to be adjusted by an action, so I'm not going to mess with moving them now, although they may need to go up somewhat before I actually assign them. And yeah, let me do that now, I'm sure of it. So when we design a character, we want to design it at the halfway status point for when we're going to apply actions. So since I'm going to apply an action to bring the abdomen up and down, it's currently in the down position. We really want it in the middle position. So I'm going to put all of these segments much closer to each other than they are now, but not any closer than I need to. So let's see, T, grabs that. And we want it to be centered on that bone. Actually, it should be on that bone. Exactly in the center of the bone. But we're going to move that bone, so let's move the bone first. B for bone, and we're going to bring it up. Holding shift so it doesn't go left or right. Just going to move it until it just barely touches the one before it. And we're going to do that with every bone. See, these are off. They should be perfectly aligned with each other as well. So we'll straighten this all out here in a second. Once we get all the bones up here. So they're quite a bit apart now, but I want to zoom in here close, and I want to get them lined up. So I'm just going to bring this one on over here, and right there. This one to right there. I've learned that the closer you get it to exact to begin with, the easier it is to make it all work together in the end. Leaving these staggered would cause an issue with the final product. So let's bring these on up. Again, my philosophy is to make as much possible to be done using the puppet during animation, so you don't have to go to design of the puppet during animation. So there they are. They're very close to being perfectly lined up. So now I need just to bring up each of these abdomen parts to match it, each bone there. So grab 7 here. Well, 7's fine. Then we grab 6 and hit T. And now I just zoom in and make sure that it's centered on its bone. So our crosshair is the red here. So we need this red line here to come up and be centered on this bone. Go. So next segment 5 is going to focus on the next bone down. T. See where its crosshair is here. Pick that up. Move it to the bone and then zoom in and make sure we get it directly on the right bone. Alright, so now we've got our character straight in the midpoint. And I think we're good. Let's save it. And then test everything. We're going to need constraints on those. We don't want those going out crazy. So let's do that. B for bone, shift to grab both, and constraints, and minus 30 to 30. That's probably still too much. That'll work. work actually. More male, more female. So we can move that, besides going left and right around the body, we can use it as a physical alteration to the character. So yeah, I like that. More male, more female. Yeah, works good. All right, so the antennas are working, the eyebrows are working, the eyes move with the head, the mouth moves with the head, the neck does its thing, the shoulders, the arms are working, down to each individual finger and thumb. Grab a hold of the thumb. There we go. And the body moves with the legs moving with it. So it looks like he's rotating around a target. And that's actually probably the best way it should be at this point. And then the legs kick, dance, tap. So that's it. This character is fully rigged as far as the puppet's direct bones are concerned. So stick around next time. I will work on doing the actions over here to make the puppet fully manipulatable. So you can make it blink, make it speak, and rotate the arms and legs around the body so it can turn left and right. And then we'll do the head turn and head tilt as the final steps before we then implement digital DNA. So this is the end of part 1. Part 2, we will do all the actions on the right hand side of the character. And then part 3, we will do digital DNA. You all have a great day. Thanks for coming and watching. Hit that subscribe, hit like, and tune in next time. Hopefully sometime this week I will have out part 2. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Stranger could be the one that you adore. Watch for the things that cause alarm. Watch for the one that would do you harm. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Please be alert and be aware of all the dangers anywhere. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Stand your ground and speak out loud. Let the world know harm's all around. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that lives next door. Danger, danger, could be a stranger, could be the one that you adore. Danger, danger. Danger, danger.